Hello, 7th grade. So, the video that you are watching today was originally made for 6th graders, but it's okay because you're doing most of the same stuff. This intro at the beginning was specifically made for you, and there's a section at the end where I teach you a technique that I did not teach the 6th graders. So if you hear me referring to things and you're not sure what I'm talking about, it could be because it's not for your class, and it's for the 6th graders. Mostly, yeah, it's the same techniques. I will walk you through. I'll show you all of the materials that I'm going to be using here. Keep in mind what I'm using. You might have fewer brushes than me, which is totally okay. The clean water challenge is a thing for you as well, and you also had the opportunity to win a sticker. I'm sure that I have told you about this stuff already. It's pretty much the same thing. So just to let you know that you're watching a video that was originally made for somebody else, but at the very end I'll come in and you'll have your own section. Thanks, guys. Hello, it's Mr. Ingram. I'm sitting in my dorm room and I'm about to go over some watercolor techniques with you guys. So just so you know, I'm not using anything special. I am using this watercolor set that's a little bit messy. I'm using some basic watercolor paper that's holding up this phone, so that's why I had to touch it and move it a little bit. And I've got these really old watercolor brushes that I use for just about everything. You'll notice they've got a good grip on them, but as you can tell, this is dyed a different color. I don't take very good care of these. I don't do a good job of cleaning them up. All of this black on here is ink. I use them for ink as well, so all of them are pretty messy and messed up. So if you'll remember from the slides, take the clean water challenge seriously, not just to get a sticker, but also to keep your supplies in good shape. You don't want to come back on another day and your brush this is stained pink mostly. It's not just coated in pink, but you didn't wash it good enough, so you dip your brush in another color and it comes out reddish, whatever color you picked. You don't want that. So please, please, please take care of your brushes. I will be using this tray portion as my color mixing tool. I believe that your grade has little trays that you can mix in that are not the flap open part. I'm also going to be using just plain kitchen napkins, like the little throwaway kind that you would buy at the store for like a party, because I'm in this room where I have to like cook for myself a little bit, so I have like kitchen napkins that I'll be using, and a small cup of water. But other than that, I'm using pretty close to everything that you guys have. So I'll take some footage as I'm going through the process. I'm figuring out how to set my camera up so it'll work. I've never filmed something like this before in this room, so I'll be back set up and we're going to start going through our different techniques. So on here you'll see I've listed out, we've got wet on wet to try, wet on dry, dry on dry, dry on wet, and then flat and gradated washes. I know that I put these up on the slides, but we will be doing both of them. The gradated, of course, means you get that fade out. So to start, and I'm going to try to like organize this where you can see it. So we're going to start with wet on wet. Now underneath there, I'm going to draw a box around my little things, but underneath the wet on wet, I'm going to get started. I am going to start with this little bit of a thicker brush. It may not look thick to you, but like look at it in comparison to this one. This one's a little thicker. So wet on wet means we are putting wet paint onto wet paper. So clean water challenge, check. I got this a little too full to be doing this, but see, my water's completely clean to start off with. I just filled this up for my little water thing in here, so I'm gonna take my wet brush, and like I said, this is stained. You can see on there that we're getting the paper wet. I know that you can see that from this angle with the weird light. So then I'm going to choose my color over here. Get my brush wet again. choosing my color, I'm gonna do blue this time. As you can see, I like blue. There's a lot of blue hanging out around the blue little tray. So I am gonna get my blue here. And I'm painting. See how it kind of like drips away from it as it goes into the wet areas, and it kind of bleeds out a little bit. So we are putting wet paint onto wet paper here. And it looks like that. Lovely, lovely. Okay, so I'm done with blue for right now. My paintbrush is looking blue. What am I gonna do? So, clean water challenge wise, I told you I've got these little kitchen paper towels like you would use. I am going to just scrub, scrub, scrub. See how it's not blue anymore? It's got a little blue on it, but it's mostly that red color. It was stained. I'm going to even do it some more because I saw some more blue. Very clean looking. Then I'm going to dip back in my water. And so here's the clean brush check. If you want to see how clean my brush is, see that little bit of blue there? Tiny bit of blue. If I do a second one, we're pretty clean here. Okay, so we're going for clean as can be. Let's do the clean water challenge check. My water is still clean completely. There is not any blue in my water from when I did that wet on wet part. It is completely clean. That's what we are striving for. If you want to get that sticker, you got to get the clean water. So next, our next example. Oh, I got a little drop right there. You can see I just flicked water on it on accident. We're going to do wet on dry. And I know you can't see this, but I am labeling. It's really blurry out here. I will try to move it closer. Funnily enough, I have a little, like a mini stapler holding up my phone right now so you guys can see the angle that I'm working on. So wet on dry. Dry paper. Not going to put any water on it like we did this one. We're just going to go straight wet on dry. So wet paint on dry paper. I'm going to go for orange this time. Those of you who have paid attention to my fun facts about me will know my favorite colors are blue and orange. So if I put her on there, we're not getting much of a difference. That cool little bleed that we had, we're not getting. And see, the paint will not go quite as far. It's really strong in that corner. Kind of fades. Like, see that big spot down there where we got that fade going on? Not as good color block wise. You see that? See all that one little drop of water did? Be careful how you're flipping around your paintbrush. I'm talking and I use my hands a lot when I talk. I'm sure you realize that. So don't be like me and flap your hands around and make a big mess of things. Yes, wet on dry looks like this. Now, I will do an up close at the end. I'll pick up my phone and travel it around so you can see all of the different ones side by side. So, clean water challenge time. I'm going to clean that brush like my life depends on it. But it doesn't. This is a lighter paint, so it's going to be harder to tell. Can I make it? I can. My water is still completely clean. You're going to have to trust me on this one. Every time I tilt it, I'm afraid I'm going to spill it all over myself. Okay, so we got a completely clean brush, except for we're working on dry and dry. This is a wet brush. You can tell there's a big drop of water. I'm going to put it aside. I'm going to move on. This is a new brush. Okay, so we're going to write down dry on dry. And this will be our next one. So, dry-ish paint. If you were to look at my tray, you can tell orange is wet, blue's wet. The rest of these aren't wet. But it's got to be at least a little wet in order to get it to work. So I'm just going to tap in here. Mostly dry, mostly dry. This paintbrush is dry. You can't see what I'm doing. Hold on. Mostly dry, mostly dry. My paintbrush is dry. I got a little bit of paint. I don't know if you can see it. There it goes. It focused on the edges. Dry on dry. It didn't work out so well. Let's try it again. Whoop, whoop, whoop. So dry paper, dry brush. See how we're getting those scratchy little marks? That is what dry on dry gets you. Scratchy textural marks. It's for dry on dry. If we tap our brush in there, get a little bit more water in here, it's still going to be, see how what a difference that makes? we put water on there, we don't get those textured strokes. We get those regular strokes. That's not really what we're going for. So, clean water challenge, check. And just so I know for my notes, I'm going to put check on this, and X on that, because it's not dry and dry. That's for me. That's for me. As you can tell, I'm trying to, like, it twists off, so I'm trying to clean this, and my brush just came apart. It's okay. I'll put it back together. Yours are probably better than mine anyways. So now we've got this, and we'll do it again. My water is still clean. You can trust me on that. I will show you at the end, though. Okay, so next, dry on wet. This is pretty much, yeah, so dry on wet. I might be doing this backwards. I'll have to check. Okay, dry on wet. So if we were to paint this surface to a wet capacity, so what I'm going to do, put down blue again. And I'm going to make this our wet surface. A nice blue layering on here. It is wet. It is blue. We've done it. And I almost made a mistake, guys. I almost just dipped this wet brush in the water without cleaning it. Clean your brushes, please. Clean them. Clean them, clean them. I've only used one paper towel this whole time, by the way. I have not switched paper towels. It's looking like this. Got some dots on it, but there's still a lot of free real estate, they would say, on this brush. As you can tell, I've cleaned it. We're looking good now. It's kind of purpley. I think I stained it. Probably using a different type. So, now, my brush is pretty much dry. If I go on my hands, it's not getting my hand wet. It's completely dry. So, now, we're going to dry brush this using some residual leftover orange that's already pretty well dried out. You can tell I've got a little bit of pigment on the end of this. We're going to come across here. This needs to be a little bit wetter, but I know you can't see that really well. See how this was scratchy and dry, and this is like this. So I'm going to use this other brush that we had before. Get it a little bit wet. And come back across it, get it wet, because I took too much time talking about the clean water challenge. And come back through with this. See how that like diffuses just a little bit on the edges? And this would probably work better with a different color. So let's try a different color. Let's just get our full menagerie of 3 brushes and try a different color. I'm just gonna add a tippy tad bit of water to this nice purple right here. Not entirely wet, pretty dry. So as you can tell, this might help. It's on the edge of that brush. We're gonna come back through. Oh, there it went. Diffusion. So it kind of bleeds a little bit, and it does not look like that anymore. And that's a puddle of water up there. I probably should have spread that out more, but I wanted to get you the diffusion. But see, all the way down this, it looks a little weird. That's dry on wet. That's kind of the fuzzy texture I was talking about. I'm sure I said that when we went over the slides. But of course, oh no. I'm trying to get this stapler to work again. I'm sorry that you're flying all around. Okay, there we go. Move her up a little bit. As you can tell, I flung my hand around, and I got that up there and this down here. So, let's move on. I'm going to clean that big, thicker brush again. The reason is, next is our washes. And I like to use a thicker brush for a wash, which a flat wash is just going to be one flat color. So that purple, I kind of like that purple that we just dipped into to get to that dry on wet. So I'm going to get into that purple, and this will be our flat wash. Check. So that lovely purple. So I'm trying to make it pretty uniform. I don't want darker colors in here and lighter areas. I want it to be pretty uniform. So as you can tell, I am going back and forth over this. Back and forth. And then see how even that is? Like this part over here is a little bit lighter. But if I go run back over it. Yeah, look how even that is. Solid purple. Flat wash. Solid purple. So now that I've gone over that, we're going to come over here. I'm going to move this a little. I'm trying to avoid this little water spot that I'm sure that you can see. So a gradated wash, which every time I type it, it tells me I typed it wrong, but I know I typed it right. A gradated wash is that one that I told you that fades out, so it's not the same. It fades out as it goes down. How we get a gradated wash, so we're starting with our purple. Real strong. Oops, it needs more water. Oh no, I just lost the clean water challenge. I'm not gonna lie. I just lost it because I just completely blanked. Okay, so I'm starting at the top and moving my way to the bottom. So if I come back through and I add, let's add some more purple at the top. Get that darker look. Darkness, darkness, darkness. And then we want it to go a little bit out as we go down. So then, I'm gonna wash my brush this time since I just lost the frickin' challenge. My apologies. It aggravates me. I'm sure it will get to you as well. It will aggravate you as well. Okay, so I'm going to dip back in here. And I'm telling you, I'm going to hit the purple with this water. I'm going to hit it. And the reason is, it's going to fade it out a little bit. The more water you add, the lighter it's going to get. Yeah. And then we'll go back over it and we'll suck in all that purple. I'm not the greatest at a graded wash, but I'm not the worst either. And as I always like to say, we are shooting for our best and not perfection. So, let's go back over these. That is our finished gradated wash. It fades from a darker purple into a light purple. Wet on wet. Ignore. Wet on wet. Wet paper, wet brush. Wet on dry. Wet paint. Dry paper. Dry on dry. It's this one with a little check mark, remember? That is our scratchy, textural kind of look. Dry on wet. We got that. It's really, there's a glare. Diffusion going on. It's kind of fading out and has that bleed look. A flat wash. We're going one solid color all the way down. Graded wash. Fading out as we come down. So, we look at our techniques. That's all the techniques that you need to know in practice, please. Your next step in this project will be to practice these. Now that I'm done, I'm going to wash these. So scrub them really good. Do my clean water challenge, which I told you I lost it. This is losing to me, and that's only a little bit purple. It should be losing to you too. So I'm going to wash those, coming through with this, dipping into that, coming back with the napkin. I'm going to wash over this too, and the way that I'm going to do that, and I'll show you with this napkin because I'm about to get a new one. I'm going to dip my napkin, the tip of it, into my water cup. And I'm going to come around and kind of clean up just a little bit. Trying not to bleed into others, because see, look at that. I've got blue in my orange. That's not good. So, those are the techniques. Those are what you need to try. I'm not going to say you're going to get all of them done today, because this video was super long. But, this is what we will be trying in the future. Hello! This is what it looks like after I rubbed it off. As you can tell, where you have the most amount of salt will be where you get that big glob of, in my case, yellow, because I use seasoned salt. But if you use regular salt, it might have turned a more white color, such as that beach I showed you. And then where you have these little dots, so if you just did a sprinkling, then you would get these little dots rather than that big glob. But yes, it turned yellow because I used seasoned salt. Fun experiment for all of us. Did not know that would happen. Again, I hope that you use these to the best of your ability and that it helps out while you practice and get an idea of what you want to do for your landscape.